So just for everyone tuning in until we begin, we're setting up the live webinar on the Journalift website. Welcome everybody, and we'll begin in just a few moments as soon as we get the confirmation that the video is live on the Journalift website where everybody will be able to view it. So bear with us for just a minute or two.
Right. 10 seconds.
So to everybody viewing us on Facebook, again, so we'll begin in just a few moments when the webinar is live on the Journalift website. So you can view it there, and you will be able to view it with every webinar that we produced in the past couple of months on the journalift.org website. So this is, again, just some technical setup that we need to do when we start streaming live. So the first we go live on Face, and then we use that embed link just to have everybody that is following us through the Journalift website be able to view it. So we're just waiting for that confirmation. So until then, thank you for tuning in, and again, bear with us. So this will be on the recording. As everybody knows, there is quite a few steps to go through Zoom and then live Facebook and then just embedding it on the website. But for everybody viewing us through Journalift, it's we're trying to make it a seamless experience later on. From today, you'll also be able to comment with us there. So we'll also test that today.
Okay, we're live.
Okay, thank you. And just a quick refresh, and we're live on the Journalift website. So thank you everybody for joining us for another Journalift webinar. This webinar's topic is Stronger Together, Networks of Women in Media. Thank you for joining us. My name is Željko Crnjaković. I'll be your host. And just a quick reminder on the technical stuff. So you are watching it, for everybody watching this, on the journalift.org website. So everybody joining us there, underneath the video and the live stream, you will be, I hope, able to comment and ask our panelists questions on any topic related that we discuss. Please feel free to leave your comments there, and when we finish the webinar, we'll just read out the questions and answer everything that we can. As far as anything else, so this webinar is the second webinar organized on the topic of gender equality in media on Journalift platform that we're bringing in cooperation with the Media for All project team. We did the first webinar on empowering women in media through policies and practice in October 2021, which you can view on the Journal Left website if you want. And when we talk to the Media for All project team leader and experts about position of women journalists in media and society, we heard about the Media for All project activities and initiatives that seek to open spaces to women in media to speak up loud and strong about the challenges to equality and equal opportunities that they encounter in their professional context and wider society because they are women. Media for All opens these spaces through training, work on gender-related policies in newsrooms, code of ethics, guidelines on gender-sensitive reporting, introduction of mentoring program for women in media in the Western Balkans, and support and strengthening of networking as a tool for long-term empowerment. Today, my guests on these topics are Masha Mileusic, who was a journalist, editor, and TV presenter for over 2 decades. She's the co-founder and activist of Women Journalists Against Violence Against Women in Serbia. Vildana Jackman is a legal expert and coordinator in Bosnia Journalists, Women Journalist Network of Bosnia and Herzegovina in the field of human rights and civil society organizations in BNH. Duška Pejović, who is a journalist, editor, and mentor. Duška has been engaged in journalism for more than 20 years and is currently employed by the radio television of Montenegro. She is the editor, author, and presenter of numerous political broadcasts. And finally, Biljana Bejkova, who is a journalist, editor, civic activist with a multi-year experience in journalism, media communication, and gender equality. Biljana is the founder and executive manager of Skopje-based civil society organization Info Center. So, ladies, welcome to this webinar. I hope you are well prepared for today's topic. This is something that you do and handle on a day-to-day basis, but let's start from the beginning. So networks of women journalists exist currently both in Bosnia and in Serbia. So what made you establish these networks? And let's start with Vildana.
Hello, everybody. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. BiH journalists have established a network of journalists in Bosnia and Herzegovina with the aim of networking journalists and combating gender-based violence. This network of female journalists in Bosnia and Herzegovina is part of the strategic program of BiH journalists and is not based on a project, which means that it must always survive and work. We took the presence of an increasing number of violence against journalists and attacks seriously, and that we can give a stronger response with this network. The network operates in 2 ways. First of all, protection and prevention of violence, gender-based violence, and violence of professional rights. And 2, improving the position of journalists with media outlets. Gender-based violence in the online world accounts for over 53%, of which only 2 threats of journalists report online violence to management. In the last 3 years, over 40% of journalists have been exposed to attacks or threats, and 70% of them have experienced this from a political or public officer. These are the results of a survey of the journalists on this organization on the position of female journalists in the Bosnia and Herzegovina. The network of journalists in the Bosnia and Herzegovina provides education for journalists on their rights and freedoms, their stronger connection and joint action in the fight against gender-based violence.
Thank you, Vildana. Masha, what is the status of the network in Serbia?
Well, the network in Serbia was the first of its kind formed in the Balkans in 2017. We also gather around and together as our colleagues in Bosnia and Herzegovina, well, to improve media coverage of violence against women in Serbia. We started just from a group of 3, and now it is a group of more than 90 journalists and editors from all around Serbia, from big and small media outlets. We was formed under the guidance with the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, and the B92 Fund. And the group generally advocates that in media reports of violence against women, this issue must be presented, treated, and examined, this is important, as a social problem, of course, in ethical way, without the sensations and, you know, the tabloid way of reporting about violence against women. Because reporting in such way, journalists demonstrate that they respect the code of their profession and the dignity of the persons they are writing about. And the most importantly, they strive to not endanger the safety of victims, but to support women survivors of violence to get out of it. Well, every woman who works in the media in Serbia is welcome to our group. By media, we don't only mean standard newsrooms, you know, and media houses, but we also mean freelance journalists, internet workers, bloggers, women who produce content for YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and other platforms. Well, our primary goal, as I said, was to improve reporting standards on violence against women. But we also discovered during our closed private, almost private meetings, well, it was closed for the public. Nobody reported about our meetings, even us who was present then, that we want the group to be a safe space for women journalists, an environment where each member can, if they wish, and they did. This is the most interesting thing, I think, about our network, to share their experiences and talk about challenges, problems in their work, support for challenges such as mobbing. We provide that, sexual harassment, we provide support for that kind of problems women journalists encounter in their life, not just work. It's a sexual harassment, mobbing, as I said, and even partner violence. Thus, for the time being, unfortunately, group does not accept male colleagues, and that's the most frequent question I get. But of course, this doesn't not exclude the possibility that one day it may be otherwise. While group is engaged in numerous activities, the most important are annual monitoring and analysis of media coverage of violence against women, advocating for reporting following the guidelines for media reporting, developing and promoting a free database of photographs and illustrations, following the standards for ethical media reporting, educational workshops for media workers on professional reporting on violence against women, establishing cross-sectoral cooperation, communication, learning with institutions and organizations dealing with the phenomenon of violence against women, and networking with, empowering and supporting journalists to deal with gender-based violence inside and outside newsrooms. Group members deliver training courses for fellow journalists, photo reporters, and journalist students. Training is covering ethical media reporting, conducting a gender-sensitive and ethical interview with survivors of gender-based violence, and other topics such as women journalist safety and protection mechanisms, self-care and well-being of journalists reporting on gender-based and domestic violence. And group members also hold workshops for photographers on the phenomenon of violence against women and ethical visual depiction of this problem, especially in the context of media reporting. And that's why we have initiated the formation of a database of photographs and illustrations that responsibly and ethically present the problem of violence, its forms and reaction to violence. And women journalists, as we know, and other women working in media face security risks linked not only to the nature of their work, but also to the fact that they are women, and group presses for ensuring that violence affecting women in the media becomes visible and subjected to sanctions. And on our group's website, network's website, we call ourselves group, but we are generally network. We provide information on protecting one's safety to all journalists, whether they are members of the group or not, and we keep adding new sources, handbooks, research reports, ETS, and of course, high on our agenda is networking, the subject we are all here today with you all, because high on our agenda is networking with our colleagues, not only in Serbia, but in Balkans, and Media for All program of British Council is really supporting this initiative in oh so many ways and levels you can imagine. Well, in all ways and all levels. I hope that you have questions for me and for us, of course. And if you want to know something deeper about everything, something more detailed, please do not hesitate to ask me everything. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Masha. I do have two questions before we continue. So Vildano already mentioned some percentages of the numbers of, you know, how many actual harassments are being reported. So that's in Bosnia. So do you have any numbers for Serbia on, you know, on your group or relative?
We don't do that kind of research. So we plan to do. We have so many plans and so many activities. This is one of the activities that we didn't execute yet, because no one in Serbia is counting, literally counting the number of attacks, because we want as a group to establish indicators which will help all journalists, unions and organizations in Serbia, there are many of them, to count you know, the gender-based attacks on women journalists, because all the harassments women journalists encounter are gender-based, because nobody threatens, you know, our male colleagues with rape or something like that. Nobody body shaming them online or offline, but women journalists encounter that kind of attacks. I don't think in maybe 99%. I think we suffer from, you know, gender-based harassment and violent threats, and that's why we want to carefully establish those indicators that will help our colleagues who are dealing with that kind of research to help them to, you know, establish the special, you know, like box for attacks only to women journalists. And that's, you know, it's hard to divide which is gender-based violence, which isn't, and that's why we are careful about that. We want to do it properly and thoroughly.
Sure. It takes time. So another quick question is, you mentioned research databases. Is this you know, public available information or for other?
Yes. Thank you for that, because now I will share. We have a new beautiful website for our group after all those years. I will share it. We have also English version. We waited for that for a few years because we are informal group. Our colleagues in Bosnia and Herzegovina is formal like this, because they're inside the existing journalists organization, and we are totally informal. We don't have, except of this website, anything. We are not NGO, we are not organization, we are not, you know, like entity, legal entity, nothing similar. we are just informal group, and that's, I think, will be maybe interesting topic for today's conversation to see what are the benefits of informal group and what are the benefits of formal group.
Okay, thank you for that. I copy pasted the link so everybody knows in the comments on the Journal Lift website for everybody just listening in and understanding. The website is novinarkeprotivnasilja.org that you can visit and check out the link in the comments. I'm assuming that after this webinar live is over, that within the description of the webinar, we can have some useful links and you will be able to find them under the video of this webinar. So let's move on and let's just stay quickly with Vildana and you and because you already have networks. So what is the value of this kind of networking in your view, Vildana?
Thank you, Željko. I just tell how Masha tell us network of journalists in the Bosnia and Herzegovina is formal network, but it is strategic program behind journalists because we don't have any project about that, but all motivation for work, not money. We just must work because we have all mission protects journalists of violence and gender-based violence in general. The value of networking for us has several levels. Primarily, we think that the network provides opportunities for personal growth and development of journalists. Knowledge of their rights, stronger fight against all form of violence, education, connection at higher regional level. Possibilities for every journalist voice to be heard and to feel that she belongs to a group of like-minded people. On the other hand, institutions in Bosnia and Herzegovina give a stronger answer in the network acts than on individual. We tell that when we talk with institutions, they give us answer fast, that we talk with network or that we have one journalist or one organization. And for us, it is important that with networks of journalists in the Bosnia and Herzegovina, we can hear all journalists, specifically journalists in small media or small local community.
Okay, thank you for that. Masha, what is the value of networking in your view?
I really thank Vildana for everything because both networks share the same values. We don't work for money, but we work for fight for, you know, women's rights. Well, human rights. That's our general human rights. And I think the value is, as Vildana said, really support, solidarity. And that's the most important value of our work and our network, as our members can tell. If maybe they listen to this webinar, I call them all to participate in this conversation. And I think supporting, especially as Vildana said, women journalists from small media outlets is crucial because they are suffering the most. It's I don't think only about pressure, you know, from politicians, from local government, etc. But they suffer really dangerous threats, physical threats, violent threats, because they live in small towns, cities, villages. Everybody knows where they live. Everybody knows who are their children, where they're going to school, etc., etc. We in big media outlets, where I was in B92 television, we cannot feel that kind of pressure and threats as they do, and we don't suffer from that as they do. They're really my heroes, not only mine, of course. Well, they're really our heroes. And I think that kind of support is very important, especially support for women journalists in tabloid media, especially print, because they're, we can say, the worst about when we are talking about ethical reporting about gender-based violence. And we have experienced that those women, because in all media outlets, in all newsrooms, the majority of reporters are women. Men are on the, you know, editorial chief executive positions, directors, etc., etc. But majority of reporters on the field are women, and they really have to fight with their editors in chiefs to, let's say, to have much more ethical way of reporting of gender-based violence against women. And they want to do that, and support that group is giving to them is really crucial. They say that they really feel protected, and they have much more power and freedom to say to editor-in-chief, well, group women journalists against violence against women are saying, look at the guidelines, it's wrong. I will report you to them, and they will issue a statement, and they will put it in the media and in the on their network. And what else is very important, all our members in the network are recognized as very important people to say, to talk to when, well, we are recognized as experts on that subject of gender-based violence against women, on reporting, on ethical reporting, and everything we fight for. And we are often, you know, quoted in the media. We are guests in the studios, in interviews. We are all, you know, like recognized as people who are fighting for ethical reporting in general. And that's, well, that's enough for now. We can talk about benefits through this webinar in also many levels.
Okay, thank you for that. So when we talk about attacks on journalists, there are many different roles that are on the path to justice. So police, prosecutors, judiciary all have their own role. And we see many challenges in the delivery of justice for journalists. So how can networking help in this context? Let's go to Duška.
Thank you, Željko. I'm glad to be with you. And I will talk about the situation in Montenegro. In the 2 last years, Montenegro has faced a huge increase in hate speech, threats, insults, misogyny that reflect huge polarization and division in society, as well as strengthening right-wing forces, nationalism, clericalism, and patriarchal norms, stereotypes, and prejudices. In the public offline and online space, the most frequent victims of attacks are women politicians, women journalists, and women activists who directly oppose the negative phenomena in society and who are visible on the public scene. The situation in the region seems to be similar. The Montenegrin ombudsman recently acknowledged that Montenegrin institutions are powerless to prevent hate speech. This is the best proof that everything that the judiciary, the prosecution, and the police do is not effective in protecting victims of violence and threats. Hate speech comes not only from social networks, but also from prominent politicians. Last year, there were 26 attacks on journalists in Montenegro, but there were many more verbal attacks and hate speech in which the police and the prosecution did not react. The state authorities mostly prosecute physical attacks, while verbal violence, hate speech, threats, and misogyny are mostly condemned only by the NGO sector or political parties. And the story ends that way. Gender-based discrimination, sexual harassment at work or in connection with work are rarely prosecuted or not prosecuted, and are often not recognized as violence. There is no research or clear data on that. But let us not forget that we still live in a patriarchal society where discrimination against women at work, at home, in society is justified by tradition and customs. Women journalists who are victims of hate speech and other forms of violence are going through difficult times and need legal and psychological help, support, empowerment, acceptance, and the sense that they are not alone. Awaiting justice before the courts or without judicial protection, women in the media are mostly left to fight alone. Even in the media in which they work, gender equality is not recognized as a human right and is not promoted in order to provide equal opportunities for women and men in journalism. The lack of sensibility in the media and society makes it difficult for women journalists to be double victims of stigmatization and condemnation of the environment, even after hate speech, misogyny, and sexual harassment. It seems that women journalists in Montenegro are left almost alone. In Montenegro, there are the Association of Professional Journalists and the Media Union, which provide some assistance, but there are still a relatively small number of those seeking psychological help due to prejudice. So the biggest problem is that the victim is mostly left alone, without understanding, support, sometimes even without friends and colleagues. When things go wrong, many do not want to carry the burden of a victim who is insulted and condemned by part of the public and on social media. That is why networking is extremely important, not only as a safe environment for the victim, but also as a circle of trust, understanding, help, support, encouragement, confidence building, and dealing with the reactions of the environment. The victim of hate speech and threats must feel through the network that there are women who understand her, who want to hear her story, who respect her, even though many people condemn and insult her. This is important for the recovery and continuation of the life and work of each of us. This is just one of the many goals of networking. I will continue on the next occasion, Željko.
Thank you, Duška. Biljana, what is your opinion on the value of networking, or on this question, in the sense of how can networking help in the context of all of these roles and bringing justice?
Hello to everybody. Thank you, Željko, for the possibility to join the discussion. And what I would like to emphasize in the beginning, yes, I believe that the networks are really very important. Although so far in North Macedonia, there are not this kind of networks that Masha and Vildana are working in and talking about. That's why I'm very eager, actually, and I believe all of us are very eager to hear more about their experiences, their steps towards building and creating this kind of networks. But shortly, I would just like to refer to the situation in North Macedonia, just to provide you with some information that I believe we share actually more or less the very same situation in all countries in the region. Duška and Masha and Vildana speaking about all that they are working or they're facing with. It is more or less the situation in Macedonia. For example, I'll just share with you some numbers that were coming from the register that the Association of Journalists of Macedonia is doing. It is actually, they're trying to register all attacks against journalists and media workers in the country. So, for example, in 2020, there were 14 serious threats of the safety of journalists and media workers. So they were noted like 14, and half of them were actually against women journalists. Some women journalists face hate speech and threats, but there were also a case of physical attacks. So misogyny combined with the online violence is a huge threat to women in journalism and in public communication and in public sphere, not only in private, but in public sphere as well. With the increasing use of digital platforms, especially everywhere and in Macedonian society as well, women journalists face an enlarged risk and more often are exposed to sexual harassment, threats, attacks. And unfortunately, the number of verbal and physical attacks that women journalists suffer is much higher than the official numbers. This is what I would like to emphasize, because quite a lot of women, I believe, women journalists are still not reporting or not speaking in public, or do not have a space to share their experience and to look for a solution, for protection and for next steps. So the attacks are part of their lives or our lives. Some of us, I believe, that still do not even recognize some cases of or manifestation of different kind of violence, especially psychological violence. And very often this kind of attacks just fell into self-censorship. They're shaking actually the quality of journalism, pluralism, freedom of expression, and actually long-standing struggle for gender equality. And what I would like to emphasize here, it is that still the situation looking for justice or journalists really being delivered justice is something that is not quite an awful situation in their country. The institutions, relevant institutions, are still not that responsive that they're supposed to be. Systemic protection for media workers in North Macedonia has been waiting for a long time for legal changes that will protect journalists, that will protect women journalists as well. So they will provide safe space, they will prosecute the violence and will punish perpetrators. And bearing in mind all this, actually, I really strongly believe that networking will not only provide a safe environment for the survivors, that will not only provide solidarity, encouragement, support, but will also amplify the voices and the pressure for changes, for better and more efficient legal protection, for more effective and responsive institutions, fight against all kinds of violence. So I'm really very eager to advocate more and more for networking and to really look for possible ways to in a way unify or bring women journalists together. Because for what I see in the past period, that women journalists are more likely to speak openly about the problems, the attacks, the violence that they're faced with. They're looking for justice. They are looking for solidarity. They're really not just eager to get support and help, but also to provide one, to share one. So I think I believe actually that maybe this is the right time to start with the first steps in that direction.
Can I say something, Željko?
Of course.
Thank you, Biljana. It's really the core of our work, and I'm speaking in front of my colleagues in Serbia, and I think I'm speaking in front of my colleagues in Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Montenegro. The same thing that we are doing in Bosnia, Herzegovina, in Serbia with our networks, are especially that we are encouraging women to say, yes, we are attacked, and that is not normal. We have, as other women experiencing violence, that kind of normalization. Well, we are used to it. We are born with that, thing that we are harassed on the street, in the public transport, on the work, or in the newsrooms. And that is why we have to stay together, stay close, stay, support each other to say, yes, attacks are not normal thing. We are fighting for, normal life. And we have to press the institutions and prosecutors and everybody in our countries to change the view about attacks on women journalists in general.
Thank you for that. And as Biljana said, so everybody's eager to hear about some of the achievements of the network. So let's go back to Vildana and Masha and just tell us, so what sort of or examples of changes happens through the activities of each of your networks? So let's start with Wildana.
Journalists are more aware of their rights and freedoms, type the networks of journalists in the Bosnia and Herzegovina. Also, network of journalists in the Bosnia and Herzegovina established strategic framework of work on and activities. We have more meetings, conference, and trainings with journalists who are members of this network. In addition to the Association of BiH journalists, they also have a higher degree of security and protection of members of the network of journalists in the Bosnia and Herzegovina. This gives them a greater degree of security. They are regularly involved in all events and research conducted by BiH journalists. For us, it is very important that all members of the network of journalists, they involve in all activity, and they must have all information about education, about project activity, or another information. The exchange of information and communication is on the biggest changes brought about this network. Lastly, the network of journalists in the Bosnia and Herzegovina managed to reach out to journalists for small local media and community to make their voice heard and to feel safer. For us, it is very important that we can hear all voice in small media and small local community, because in the Bosnia and Herzegovina we have many attacks from political leaders on journalists. Specifically, situation is hard in the small local community because, you know, when you live in a small local community, everyone knows who are you. And in Free Media Helpline, we have a lot cases, attacks on journalists in the small local community. And these networks of journalists in the Bosnia and Herzegovina is very important that we can stay together when we have cases about gender-based violence. And I want to tell that I share link this network on the chat, and everybody can see what we do, and we have all information on website BiH journalist about network of journalists in the Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Thank you, Wildana. The link is also shared in the comment section on the Journalist website below this video right now. So, Masha, what are some of the examples of what has your network done?
Well, what kind of examples you need? What's example for you? Is it something, you know, like I was talking about? Like, because networks offer support, connection, friendship, networks leads to empowerment, and we know what empowerment leads to. And, you know, just clarify the question, please.
So basically, whatever you wish to say, which basically when we talk about examples in this sort of way, we usually think about not what is important for you as somebody in the network, but something that is perceived as value to the members of the network. So what are some of the examples that you're proud of that your members can say that they had value in?
Well,
or receive value from the network?
I don't have members. Members are all of us, and we all benefit from our network. And that's why I'm talking about support, connection, and friendship. That's the most great values. Well, we stand in support, in fight for our rights, in fight for, you know, for rights to be visible when the violence against women journalists is about. We defend our members, if I can say like that. And our members are really feel supported and stronger when they're they're talking with each other, when they are receiving the support we offer. They are really thankful for all education we are conducting, all like seminars and education I was talking about, well, 10 minutes ago. And that's it's really very important. And I have to say that all our members and we who are part of the Media for All program of British Council are experiencing the same, because I think education is something very important. And my colleagues were talking about this kind of things, because education means empowerment, to recognize forms of violence, to recognize that is not normal. And I think that is one of the most important things. Well, women journalists, well, feel safer with us, because I think safety is in numbers. And that's, I think, is for now enough. Like, maybe we can talk about afterwards with maybe some people who are watching and listening this webinar. Maybe they have other questions. I think this is the most important things: education, empowerment, supporting, solidarity.
Fantastic. Okay, let's talk about something that is always a fact, which is networks, and everything besides work actually is always difficult to maintain, especially networks. We see them appear, disappear in various professional fields. So why talk about networking again in the times when functioning of many well-established organizations is challenging and difficult? Duška, what do you think?
Thank you, Željko. Many well-established organizations often have several people who share the same ideas, while the rest of the people are hired as associates or employees with more or less commitment to the same ideas. There are a large number of organizations that work for financial gain, and work for the common good is only a declarative goal. The basic motives for gathering and organizing people today are earning money or other material benefits, while visible results in social progress have become essentially rare. On the other side, I think that networking is one of the ways to honestly connect people and sincerely believe in basic human values. Networking means that we trust people, that we believe in friendship, cooperation, and that we have a need for social cohesion that leads us to overcome differences and reduce divisions. Networking is the willingness and desire to meet other people, to connect, to make friends, to help others, to seek help, to learn together, to seek and provide support, to hear our voices, to fight for better status and better working conditions, to create a group security and trust that will have the power of joint action and greater public influence. 15 years ago, Montenegro had a network of women journalists which disappeared after half a year. The reasons for the disappearance were the lack of desire and will to actively contribute to progress. There were no more attempts after that. Why do networks often fail? I think that our last 30 years have been spent in crises, conflicts, poverty. So we are focused mainly on ourselves and our problems, interests, and needs. Crisis times can develop solidarity and care for others, as after the Second World War. But they can also suppress them and make people selfish without a deep feeling for other people and their problems, and without hope that things can be fixed. As an excuse, many people say they can't change things on their own and don't bother to try. I think it all happened to us. We have lost the foundation for networking, socializing, closeness, and the common desire to build a better society. In the time of COVID, the distance between people increases. Feature of society is a fake activity that is seemingly realized through contacts on social networks with people, often strangers, who comment on current events. And that is all that connects us. A lot of misinformation and propaganda, insults, hate speech, bad political and social situation kills people's faith and hope that it can be better. An apathetic society in which each person turns only to his own interests and has no need to think about others, to work and create with others, or to fight for the common good. It is the reality of our time. That is why networking is a medicine for trying to heal parts of society, for reviving solidarity and empathy, for showing care for another person, and for awakening activism. Networking is the right way and the cohesive factor that can make qualitative changes and make people feel useful, accepted, happier, and better. That was my answer.
Thank you, Dushka. Thank you. And this is an all-encompassing answer, as I'm assuming everybody agrees. So I'm just warning everybody, don't hate me. I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm not going to confuse you. I'm going to switch. Biljana, we're going to go to the next question for you because we're like approaching the 5 o'clock hour. So Dushka already said about, why do networking? So, but networking also requires activism and solidarity. And as Dushka said, there is a need for networking, but is there readiness between countries and in the region to establish networks? So what is needed for this, and what is your opinion on this?
Thank you, Željko. And it's really very difficult to say anything more after Dushka expose because she really provided a comprehensive answer and everything that what I wanted to say. But what I think, the thing that we have a webinar here and that we are discussing about networking and we share experiences here is just one small sign that there is a need, that we work together, that we make not only networks but really to bring solidarity and friendship and empathy together. So the first thing and what I would like to say is that we should see, do we have a readiness within our countries as well, within our community, for example, between journalists and also among countries. But I think those difficult times are actually, emphasizing the need to reach for the other, to reach for friendship, to reach for support, to reach for a safety net, to reach for someone or some people, some women who share the values, who share the support and thing. And from what I have seen, for example, how women journalists in Macedonia are reacting when they face violence or their colleague face violence, they're more louder, they're more eager to really fight for justice, to really fight against violence, to really protect the other. So I think it's a right time, at least I hope that it's right time to take the first step towards networking and to see what kind of network or what kind of collaboration we can create within our countries, but also among countries. I think it is a real time, although it doesn't seem like that. It's still COVID, it's still, somewhere lockdown, we're still locked in our houses as well. But I think there is a great need and there is a great voice for that.
Thank you, Biljana. And Biljana, with this, she opened up the actual last question, which will be open to everybody. And with that, we will go to finalize this webinar. And basically, that is an open question for all my guests. Is there potential for regional network of women in media in the Western Balkans? And how can in-country networks and regional networks relate and complement each other's works. So let's go, Duška, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you, Željko. This is the last question, but it is the most important question for us today. It's very important to establish a women's network in the country in order to pool all human resources at the local level and build strength for action, learning, and support. Inclusion in the regional network of women journalists increases our strength and influence and opens opportunities for further learning, advancement, greater support, but also better protection of our rights. If one woman journalist is a victim of hate speech, the support and obligation for institutions to react is much greater when there is a reaction and pressure from all women journalists in the region. It is a great strength and we should use it, not only for our good, but also for the good of the whole society. Today in Montenegro, we have problems of disinterest, distance of people, apathy, and lack of activism, which we must face and find a way to overcome and awaken women journalists. That is why the British Council and female colleagues from Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina are helping us to establish the Montenegro network. Their experiences and advices are precious to us, and thank you for that. This shows the importance of the regional network. Advices help and support new knowledge, etc., etc. I expect that the women's network in Montenegro will be established by the end of March. And for the end, let us never allow any other female journalist to be alone again. Let's make a network.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Duška, for your valued input. Vildana.
Thank you, Željko. I think that is important question for this webinar. There is potential for the creation of a large regional network for the Western Balkans, which has a greater degree of protection of journalist rights and freedoms and freedom of expression. Existing local networks have one common goal in the fight against gender-based violence. They would also provide conditional for different information on what journalists are dealing with in certain countries in the region. Together, we could develop stronger models of recommendation to guarantee freedom of expression and protect against gender-based violence. And I believe that we have all knowledge, all information in the networks in the country, in the region, and I believe that one regional network can be stronger for prevention gender-based violence journalists in the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Biljana, let's go with you.
I have no doubt that at least we have to try to establish a network in North Macedonia, since there is still, there are some initiatives, already some group of women like PINA organization, which has women journalists and working with them, mentoring them, but also recognizing other organizations, recognizing the very core problem of violence against women journalists, but also seeing women journalists being more and more vocal, more and more eager to do something and to fight against violence, I think provides an excellent base to start with the first step, to discuss what are the possible ways that we connect, we support each other, we create a cohesion. And also I think it is going to be very valuable if we can share and we can hear more of the experiences that our colleagues are having in Serbia, in Bosnia, but also the first steps in Montenegro. So it's going to be really very valuable. And I see myself as part of the others eager to try, at least to try to create a network.
Thank you, Biljana. And let's finish off with Masha and your opinion.
Well, my opinion is that we need women journalist networks. We are really in need. And we could see that on our gender events that Media for All program organized in Podgorica in 2 occasions, because British Council is supporting this initiative of networking in Balkans when women journalists are we're talking about women journalist networks. And we all participated, well, my colleagues today, we all participated in that event, and we could feel that we gathered around the same idea that we need to be stronger, we need to be together, we need to share knowledge, experience, to support each other, we need solidarity. But without the in-country networks of women in media that could serve as platforms for unity, solidarity in the fights against hate speech, abuse, violence, all forms of discrimination, the gender-based violence problems, I think will remain more normalized and often institutionalized. Well, networking offers that kind of space for making these problems visible and ultimately understandable. And I think that after in-country networks are formed, in country where they don't exist, we have great network in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We could use their experience, and we could use experience from Serbia, from my network. And I think that's what it's all about, to stand stronger together. And I think this webinar, well, title of this webinar wrapped it up all, because networks are all about stronger together. And that's it. Network leads to empowerment.
Thank you, Masha, and thank you to you all. As I just checked, we don't have current any questions, but I think you covered pretty much everything, and the important points on the importance of building networks and networking between networks, especially not only in country, but in region, on this very important topic of empowering women in media and hate speech and all that the networks are covering. So I wish you luck in your work, and keep up the enthusiasm, because as we said through one question, only with activism and hard work will these networks give value and results. So to all of our viewers, thank you very much for joining us for another Journalift webinar. We will be with you again in February with another webinar. And until then, thank you for viewing us, and check out other content on the journalift.org website.